I'm Catherine Hoare, now a medical writer, senior medical writer, on fast track for promotion to be a principal medical writer, and also a mum of 2 children and countless animals. Started at school, school's not great. I was dyslexic, which was not a thing back then, so therefore, because I wasn't dyslexic, because it wasn't a thing, I was stupid, and I was put in the remedial class and told not to expect anything from a career. Luckily, I had a father that wouldn't tolerate that and would tell me repeatedly that I could be anything I wanted to be. And because of him, I didn't give up. Struggled through my A-levels, managed to get into university where I started studying biomedical science and found my love, my thing. And it just blossomed from there. And once I'd found my thing, I excelled. I got a first-class honours, went straight on to do a doctorate in biomedical science. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So I was working in medcoms and loving it. And then I met a man, as you do when you're young, and fell pregnant. And I didn't realise at the time, but I was slowly being trapped in an abusive relationship. And while I was pregnant, he persuaded me not to go back from maternity leave, so I quit medcoms. He then persuaded me that mums should stay at home with their children when they're young, which I was fine with because that was how I was brought up. And I love my kids. And yeah, I was grateful to him for supporting me and allowing me to do that, but it rapidly went from me being a stay-at-home mum to me being a stay-at-home mum and his office administrator and running a post office where we lived and working on the railway at nights. And that was where I ended up trapped. And he convinced me that I was stupid and that was all I was capable of. And to be honest, I was so busy with 3 jobs and 2 kids that I didn't see my world disappear around me, or my friends disappear, or my life disappear. And it wasn't until a doctor performed an intervention by the domestic abuse services that I realised what was happening. So in November 2020, myself and the children left. Couldn't take the car because it was a work van with a tracker in. So literally a friend drove across the country, one of the few friends I had left, bundled me, the kids and the dogs in the car and drove us off. We ended up in a refuge. See, he had all the money, he controlled everything. I literally had nothing other than the bags I walked out with and my kids. It was my best friend at the time who said, "You were good at medical writing, you enjoyed it, you spent years dedicating yourself to this, go back to it." And because of what I'd been through with him and years of being told that I was stupid, that I couldn't do these things, you end up believing it. So I saw the salary that I could get as a medical writer, and I knew that was my route out of the refuge, but I didn't think I could do it. I knew deep down I couldn't do it. I was not that person. I was not capable. And I sent my CV off for some jobs, still thinking this just isn't going to happen. And yeah, at that time I didn't know how the process went, but Chloe contacted me and she phoned me and talked to me, and I think that was the thing, because previously it was just emails and me dismissing things, but Chloe talked to me and took time to get to know me and understand my situation. She told me that I could do it, and she basically walked that journey with me. She had me. She set up the interviews. She would phone me before every interview, calm me down, get me in the right frame of mind. She would then phone me after every interview and we'd kind of like go through a debrief and how it went. Whenever she got positive feedback, she was straight on the phone to me because she knew I needed that. So when I started getting the first writing tests come through, I'd started to actually believe in myself a little bit. I was still terrified, still convinced I was going to fail, but I had enough guts to actually look at the writing test. And then I started doing it, and I found myself enjoying it, and I found myself slipping into that now familiar zone of a writer, and it just coming from me. And we sent the writing tests off, and Chloe again contacted me. She was like, "They've been really well received, you did well." And I started to get people actually wanting to employ me, which was such a shock. Multiple people seemed to want to employ me. And again, Chloe was there and we talked through all my problems. At the time I was in a refuge, so how do you work from a refuge? You can't divulge your address, you haven't got a phone line. It seemed impossible. So Chloe talked about the pros and cons of going with a bigger company where I'd be kind of a bit lost to a smaller company like Bioscript, where everyone would know me and they would know the situation and they would be empathic and sympathetic. And so with Chloe's advice, I decided that Bioscript was the place that felt right for me. I guess it was a transition. She got me there and stayed with me, and until they took over. And they did, because I was an emotional wreck with no self-confidence. I couldn't talk to a client. I was terrified of the world. And Bioscript just wrapped around me and picked up this puddle of a person that was on a floor and said, "No, in you is something special and we're going to help you find it." And they did. And my line manager, Anna, who is utterly incredible, the best person I have ever worked for, she pushed me just enough to make me stretch without terrifying me. I guess one of the most rewarding things, because obviously I talk to the experts and they have amazing insight, and I love the science and the highbrow kind of intellectual side of it. But another thing that's happening now, which didn't happen previously, is we are getting patient authors on various publications and communications, and I get to speak to patients and patients that are involved in patient advisory groups, and they will tell me about the hardships they have faced getting medical help and support and difficulties in certain communities, and then they will tell me about the difference that certain incentives have made and how it is changing their life. And hearing that from an actual person that has had to cope with this challenge, to hear that what is happening is legitimately changing their life and the lives of other people like them, that is the gold, that is a happy day when I hear that.